Hello, fiends, friends, and familiars. This is Matt Orozco here from Macabre Daily, and I'm joined today by Rae Dawn Chong, who is an actor who's appeared in over 90 films and television shows, including some of my favorite films like Commando, Tales from the Dark Side, the movie, Hideaway, which I don't think folks have seen enough of. And of course, you recently appeared in the new AMC Interview with the Vampire series, as well as
Yeah.
the film we're here to talk about today, which is Scared to Death. So thank you, Rae
Uh,
Dawn, for being here.
Honey, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Well, I only have a few minutes with you, so I'm going to take the most time I possibly can. So the first question I've got for you is, you've so much about Scared to Death is about filmmaking and the process of making a film with the people you make it with. And you've had a very long and active career in the industry. So I'm curious how you compartmentalize the reality of having worked in the industry for so long against kind of the meta-ness of what you're doing in Scared to Death.
Yeah, I was able to access some of my prior producers and just sort of add my little spin to it. But you know, it's such a gift to be able to have spent decades doing what I do. And sometimes it's been really, really, really fun. And sometimes it's been really, really, really challenging. Like some of my best films were super hard to make because of various things, whether it was a lack of budget, a really difficult location, or the director was a dick. But then some of my films that I thought I had a really good time on didn't turn out as good. I've even directed and failed and then directed and succeeded. So, it's just like this magical soup, this to make a film and to be on a creative project. You're never guaranteed that it's gonna work, and you're certainly not gonna be guaranteed that you're gonna be able to do a good job. Like I have done some movies which I can look at the performance and think, oh my God, I sucked. And then I've done some performances in films that people haven't seen that I'm so good in. So it's like, oh my God, you can't control the outcome. We can only show up for the alchemical magic of the moment. Did I answer that or was that too long-winded?
No, that is perfect. And I love what you said because so much of the horror genre is about a kind of a delayed reaction, which is a film comes out, it doesn't necessarily get, the critical reception or maybe the audience reception that it's expected to, and then 10 years later it becomes this kind of cult classic that people
Mhm.
revere for decades onward. So it is such a, is that something that you find a lot of excitement in almost, is this idea that when you go into a project you go in with obviously the best of intentions and hopes, but you actually don't know what's going to happen. So in some ways, that
Yeah,
kind of
you
adds to the
never really
mystery.
know. I remember talking to Schwarzenegger. He had already shot Terminator, and we were doing Commando at the time. And I remember him saying, "I don't know if it's going to be any good." We had no money. It was really difficult. I almost died. I mean, it was like a lot of stuff on that location was really hard, and he was really insecure about it. And then the rest is history, right? So,
Right.
and the same with the Star Wars people. They didn't know. They're just like, oh God, this is going to make $5.50. You never know. Like that's the thing that I've always sort of counted on in my career. You never know what's going to have legs, what's going to be good.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So it's a lot of faith. You have a lot of in this case with Scared to Death, I know the producer and he's a really dear friend of mine. So it's like a tribal thing. I had to step up for him because he's super fun and I love EB and I've known him all my life. And I just feel like that's what we're here for, man. We're here to have fun and take care of each other. So I was lucky that it turned out and it's really fun and sweet. It could have turned out badly and I still would have done it because I love my friend.
Yeah.
So at this point in my career, I turned 65 this year, and it's all fun. I only do it from a place of love. Whatever I'm working on, it's because I love the people, I love the material, and it's just an act. It's not a survival. It's not because I need to pay my rent. It's because I need to have fun, and I love making play. And this is what we're doing. We're playing.
There, and we need so much more of that in our lives. I find that as we get older, we remove play from our lives. We're replacing it
Yeah.
with work, but when your work can become your play, or at least you can start to bring those worlds together. It allows us to scratch both itches. And I love that in your kind of this at this point in your career, you get to do things because you want to do them, because
I
you're
only
helping
do
people out.
everything I do. I only work with people I love. I only work on projects that I love. And I've survived this long. Listen, it was I'm writing a memoir right now, and there are moments that could have been But yeah, I'm at a point now where it's all uphill, and it's but in a good way. It's all cake. I'm having cake. I'm on the cherry part of the dessert.
Well, you're having the cake and eating it too now, which is the best position to be in. And you mentioned a memoir just now. When do you think you'll finish it?
I don't know. I think I'm a third of the way through. I thought I was halfway, but then I did a page count, and I was like, um, I'm taking my time. And it's challenging because I want to make sure that it's interesting, that it's instructive, that it's not like just making everything like it was just so fabulous. And then I'm also trying to be as honest as I can, but without completely crushing people.
Right.
And then I have a father who's an icon. And then to be honest about my childhood, and then he's a beloved icon. It's kind of tricky, so I have this like bleeding edge of challenge of being able to be true to the story, true to what I consider to be facts, but then also outing people. So it's been challenging. I love writing. I love putting down my history because who else is going to?
Right.
And then I'm hoping that I hope I do a good job. Just wish me luck because I want to do a good job, you
Oh, I
know?
don't I don't think you'll need it, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. And all the luck, touching all the wood as far as, making sure that you get the words down the way you intend them to and you tell the story that you want the world to hear. Um,
You know what I want? I want it to be clear and clean and a fun read.
I feel like you've already got the fun part in Downlock because any entertainment memoir I've read has always got this kind of fascinating Babylon style, just a flair to it because the entertainment industry is so dynamic and it's changed so much over the course of many decades. So to see how that transition shows up and how that shows up in you as a professional, but also, in the people you work around with is always just interesting to read. I think people always we crave that level of understanding of things we don't get visibility into all the time. So I'm looking forward to it. I can't be the only one. I know that for sure. Um,
Thank you. That motivates me. It puts a little bit more of a fire under my butt to finish it. Because I always think, who's going to care? Historically, women don't get that much history written about them for some reason. Isn't that weird?
and I think it's time to change that, though. I feel like there the stories that aren't told are the ones we need to be hearing more of because I don't need to hear about another, you know, young kid who was given a lot of money from his parents but didn't tell anyone about it and then made themselves up to be a big business person by bootstrapping it with $1 million or something $1 million loan. I don't want to hear that story. I want to hear about the person who, didn't have it easy
Against
or
against all odds, or because you can also it's also challenging for nepo babies because everyone thinks
right.
nepo babies, everything gets laid out, but it's not that way. In some ways, it's easier to come from obscurity than it is to come from a known environment.
Yeah, no, I think there's a good conversation to be had about the challenge that comes with living up to an expectation versus not having to have one. And my last question for you, Rae Dawn, is just kind of a fun one. You've done a lot of work in genre films. I mean, you've worked across different types of films and shows, so it's not like you've been specific to one area, but you've done quite a bit of horror. Would you consider yourself a fan, and do you have any personal favorites?
I'm a fan of it, but I don't often watch it if it's too good because sometimes it's just too scary and then it traumatizes me because I'm very empathic. Um, but like for instance, would you consider Arrival a horror movie?
I don't know if it's considered horror, but it's definitely in genre. Like it's kind of the sci-fi,
So
but
I would say that's my favorite is anything paranormal would be a little bit. Um, I loved Tales from the Dark Side. I think it should have been a whole feature because it was so juicy and really beautiful. I loved working with James Remar. Um, but the other horror stuff I've done, it's kind of dopey. It was like I took the job for money. But and I didn't see the film. But like things where body parts are involved, I call that gore porn. I'm not crazy about, like all those hostile movies. And I remember once
right.
sitting behind somebody on a plane and Saw was playing on their computer, and I was just like, "Roar." But I think that's a type of porn. But I do like, like weapons. There's some movies that are pretty spectacular, and this is really fun. So there isn't a type of horror that will attract me. Um, But yeah,
Just not too gory and more on the
I
supernatural
don't really
side.
like the body parts. I'm not crazy about it. What did I watch? Begonia. Have you seen Begonia?
Yeah.
So that was pretty traumatizing. I mean, I loved it, but I was like, oh, that was hard.
Yeah, it definitely gets pretty intense in parts. Um and Rae Dawn, I just want to say it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you just now. I really appreciate you at the time, and I want to remind everyone watching this that you can catch Scared to Death in theaters on March 13th. So please go support it. And Rae Dawn, I will be waiting for that memoir. I'll be pre-ordering my copy as soon as I see them go up. So please take your
Ew.
time, but also know the world is waiting for your story.
Thank you so much. I love you. Thank you.
Nice to meet you, Rae Dawn. I'm here. Thank goodness. Well, Lynn, thank you so much for taking some time. I don't know if you remember, but we spoke last year when you were doing press for House of Abraham, so it's glad to be reconnected with you.
Thank you. I do remember actually, because
Oh,
I think
lovely.
were you in the same room? Because there's something about that background that I recognize also.
Yep. Yep. The posters have changed a little bit, but the layout's the same.
The
So
layout's the same. It's nice to see you again.
same here, Lynn. Well, I'll jump right into the questions because I know we don't have all the time and you've got things to do. So, hello, fiends, friends, and familiars. This is Matt Orozco from Macabre Daily, and I'm joined by someone who I don't think needs much of an introduction, but I'm going to give you one anyway, Lynn. It's Lin Shaye, who has over 200 credits to her name, has
Thanks.
been a mainstay in the industry, and particularly in the horror genre, which we love, having appeared in film series like Insidious, as well as films like 2001 Maniacs and also some personal favorites like that are adjacent, like Detroit Rock City, and of course, most recently, House of Abraham, which I had it's hard to say I had a blast with, but I really enjoyed the film despite it being a very heavy topic. And
Yeah, it
uh,
really is.
and you're appearing now as Max or Maxine in Scared to Death. So, Lynn, thank you so much for taking some time to speak again.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. And my first question for you, Lynn, is um, you have you have such a range in terms of kind of the roles you take on in your performance. And I think it's one of the things that makes you such a fascinating actor to continue watching because you never know how you're going to show up and what kind of characters you're going to play. And you really let yourself kind of go with here with Max and this character. And I'm curious to know, do you tend to have a preference these days in terms of the kinds of roles you take on? Do you want to go more towards the Max type characters or maybe things that are a little more grounded in the reality?
I pretty much love it all. I mean, and every script is a challenge in a different kind of way, and trying to find the kind of not to sound like an actor, but the personal truth that what you're trying of creating these characters that have a reality, um, that have to have a sort of a real reality to you to make them, I think, work as well as they can. And I was just saying, playing a bitchy character, which Max on the surface is anyway. We find gratefully a little later that there's a reason she is the way she is as well, which was very important to me to be able to not have it be a one-dimensional character. But she was really fun for me because she could look good, which I very rarely get to, at least as good as I could look, and a good makeup. She had lashes and she could do the whole thing. And her little leather, I wanted to be in leather. We had a thing about that she's kind of a little S&M in her a little bit. And um, and it's always fun to reach out and try and create something that's somewhat very appealing but sort of taboo at the same time. Although this is probably more appealing than it is taboo. It's like,
Yeah, well, I mean, Max definitely represents kind of the worst behavior we see in Hollywood directors. So I'm curious, kind of, how much did you pull from your own personal experience, having worked with some, with different personalities in the industry, and how did that inform the way you played Max?
I think she's more rude than she is anything else. She just says whatever comes out of her mouth. I have really been lucky. I mean, and also I think a lot of it is a little showbiz buzz, that people are. I mean, there are directors who are somewhat abusive that have gone down kind of in history, actually. Um, but generally speaking, the goal is to make the best movie you can and to be cooperative to make that happen. But there is a thing about wanting to rule people. There is something about I'm not very good at that, period. And there are people that are better at it. I mean, I think those are the directors, being able to delegate, responsibility and make sure you're doing this and make sure you're doing that. I could play it better than I can actually be it, I think. I'm better, with
I'm with you.
walking my dog.
Yeah, if someone asked me to perform the person of someone in charge, I'm way better at doing it than if you put me in charge, at which point
Totally.
I'll probably be asking everyone for help and maybe crying when no one's looking. But
Well,
uh
we're from the same family.
yeah, I was gonna say we're cut from a very similar cloth. Now we last spoke, you said something that still sticks with me, which is that when you reach out, when you take on a role, you ask about the character, what does this person need or want? And that's something you're always trying to answer when you go into these characters, is what is the kind of deeper down motivation? And I was curious to know, what was the motivation that you kind of prescribed to Max in this movie?
That's a great question. I think ultimately she wanted to be heard. Um, that giving orders is one way of being heard, but I think she really, we find out that there is a soft spot in Max as well, and and it does go back. It's like no one really ever listened to her, and this is something I sort of constructed in my own preparation or whatever, or not even preparation so much as thinking about who the character was or is. But that she when you think about a little kid, and as the parent, that's what you hear is and then say, go to your room and play with your doll or do whatever. And all those times that little person is, well, I want you to listen to me. I need you to tell me what I'm supposed to be doing here. And it goes on blank ears. And I think in our daily lives, there's a whole lot of that goes on in the workplace, in the family. There's a lot of wah, 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 and a lot of, well, do this anyway, or where people really don't hear you. So I think ultimately, when I think about it, that's kind of what Max is too. She wanted someone to really, the only way she knew to have people hear her was to bark, and to bark orders and to threaten them, because if you threaten them, they'll do it. And she
Right.
realized she had finally reached a position in her career where she could do that and get results. And then, we see it break down quite a bit when she's doing Ring Around the Rosie in particular, and she's with the kids in her that sort of dreamlike state that she has in the film. And that was something very important, I think, for me to try to create. I don't like having one note on a character. Sometimes you're asked to do that. And even if you are, I try and sneak in just a couple little vulnerable moments where you see maybe this is not who she really is or who she really would like to be at this moment. But so I loved the way Paul and Eric let me create this woman, that because originally she was just written as a bitch, and
And
and I
that's not as interesting. I think that there's so much. I was talking with Rae Dawn Chong earlier, and she said something similar. It's like, I do this because I like to play. And if you don't get a chance to play in that role, it's just so hard. Like, it shows up, I think, on the film when you know that the actor is really having a good time playing this role. And I think what's been so magnetic about your roles in your career, Lynn, is that every time we see you, you draw attention to yourself. And I think it's because of the effort you put into creating that backstory, whether we know that that's the backstory or not. You show up with that as part of you as the character. So um I think I want to thank you for that, and thank you for being so thoughtful in your delivery. um
thank
and
you. That's a beautiful. Thank you so much. That really means a lot to me. Thank you so much.
Oh, well, it's a pleasure, Lynn. And I know I've run up on my time with you here, but I just want to remind everyone that Scared to Death is going to be in theaters on March 13th. Please go watch it with your friends, those that you love to get scared and laugh with, because it's going to do both.
You could be scared to death.
Exactly. You might want to
You
get yourself a
might be
coroner.
scared.
Don't bring your coroner friend, because they might have too good of a time by picking up your remains with you. But Lynn, I cannot wait to hopefully chat with you again. But congratulations on not just this film and on your massive body of work, and really appreciate the time today.
Thank you so much. That means so much to me, and I love speaking with you as well. So till next time, let's say.
Thanks, Lynn. Talk to you again soon. Bye bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Brian. Right. Well, hello, fiends, friends, and familiars. This is Matt Orozco here with Macabre Daily, and I'm joined by Kurt Deimer, who is the returning guest to Macabre Daily. He previously spoke with my colleague Sam a few months back when you're promoting your album.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
but Kurt is a musician and actor who's one of the stars in the upcoming film Scared to Death, where he plays the Grog, and this is coming out on March 13th, 2026. So, Kurt, thank you so much for taking some time to chat with me today.
Well, Matt, thank you for having me, man. It's the only way I can connect with the fans and let them know what Kurt Deimer, aka the Grog's all about. So,
Well, the people have questions. They want to know the Grog. So we're here to get a little bit more insight into yourself,
cool.
but also the character of the Grog. And before I get into that, I always like to get a sense of what your history with the horror genre is. You know, what initiated or instigated your love of horror.
Well, I always loved horror. I mean, I love Mare on Elm Street, Amityville horror. I watched horror. I would always did gravitated towards it, but um, I didn't even know I'd be an actor until 2017 when I went to do a cameo with my oil brand in a Trading Pain, a John Travolta movie, and they needed a track announcer, and they liked my look, and all of a sudden I'm a SAG member, and doing a scene with Shania Twain and John Travolta, and that's I'm like, I love this, I love it, and I never thought in my life I'd do it, and then I got into Halloween 2018. Great film, the of the first of the last three, and I was killed by Michael Myers. And while I was walking the red carpet, I'm like, I'm going to start my own horror franchises and film company. And here we are. And I shot a movie called Hellbilly Hollow that'll be coming out in the fall, where I play a complete psychotic character along with my brother Tickles. So that's the next big horror duo, which I don't know if there is a horror duo out yet, but it's coming. And then Paul Boyd and he did some music videos for me as Kurt Deimer is my band. And he had this script, and I'm like, well, how can if I put out Hellbilly Hollow now, nobody's going to know who Kurt Deimer is. Then Paul had this script, and he's like, but I want to change it, and I want to create this character, Gregory Grogstone, who's a horror icon. And he's you, because your personality is what I envision as Gregory. You're the Grog. And I'm like, all right. And then Lin Shaye and myself and Paul, we fine-tuned the script. Bill Moseley wanted to be in it, which I knew. And once I knew Lin and Bill wanted to be in it, and I could come out of nowhere and act in the same room with Lin Shaye, who's iconic, and Bill Moseley, who was my idol, and now we're all great friends. And Paul was like, I'm so nervous because this is my first big starring role. He wasn't on Hellbilly Hollow, but he had seen it and saw how cool it was. And he goes, just do it, be the Grog. And I thought, what better way to introduce fans by doing this kick-ass movie, this fun ensemble cast with great actors, and showing the world who the Grog is and who Kurt Deimer is, along with Lynn and Bill. And I think it's just such a fun ride. It's suspenseful, it's different, and it's the way movies should be, where you can get some popcorn and a Coke, which is what I would do, and just sit there and take a ride, man. So that's kind of how it all got it. And I'm not going to necessarily focus on horror all the time, because I'd love to do comedies, and I'd love to do suspense, and just anything where the type of acting I do fits in to make the fan. And I think the fans will really believe sincerely every time they see me that, man, he plays some great characters. So that's kind of how it all started and why I'm doing it. So,
Well, it's a great story from a guy from Cincinnati, Ohio, to all of a sudden acting in movies and walking red carpets with stars. And I think it's a testament, I think, one to not just how quick things can happen in life, but also, when you find your people, your tribe, it's kind of where you want to be. And it sounds like you've really found a connection and a fit amongst not just your acting peers, but folks in the entertain outside of just music in the film industry as well.
yeah, and it's not, it just didn't happen overnight. I've been knocked down. I just get back up, and I'm a very persevering person. I can take my lumps. You tell me I can't do something in life, I'll do it and prove it that I can do it. And I don't say I don't like people to say no, no, no. Well, why don't you think about yes a little bit? Let's just think about it. And I just want to bring common sense, peace, love, and kindness. And I thought the character Grog, people could just gravitate towards, and we can all fight the good fight together in life and laugh and have fun and have kick-ass movies together. And then all these other characters I do in movies, we're going to have a lot of fun over the next however long God wants me on Earth. I'm going to do it till I die. So,
Well, I mean, I think what's so interesting is I spoke with Paul yesterday, and he talked a little bit of how when he came to you and a few others with the script, that it started out as something a little bit different, and he really leaned into having you all help flesh out not just the characters but the story. And to that, I'm curious, kind of to understand how much of the grog that we get in the final product is different than what initially kind of you started with is very what sounds like is an outline of the character.
yeah, yeah, it was an outline. I think even the way when we did it, Lynn moved over into the role of Max, which I think was amazing, and it was perfect. And Bill kind of see Bill Moseley as a different kind of character than Devil's Rejects was my favorite movie, which I idolized him from that. And now we're like great friends, and I can't
Surreal,
believe I
right?
still shop. It's very surreal, man. I mean, I can call him right now. He go, "What's up, Grog?" He calls me the Grog everywhere. I got to call Lynn later today because we're going to the Saturn Awards together. I'm at Lynn's date, so it's the Grog and Lynn. So that should be fun this Sunday.
That's gonna be cool.
But yeah, it is. It's just very. We just took this character, had him. We took it, and we're just like, you're going to be the Grog, and the Grog is the Grog, and we're going to build a whole movement around the Grog. It's just so exciting because I have so many ideas and fun things for the fans, and yeah, it is. I got to pinch myself sometimes.
I mean, it's interesting that the grog is almost this voice of reason at the point in this film because we often would assume that like this kind of over stylized personality, someone who's not only taken their lashes in the industry, but has kind of come out of it a little bit of a, a better, but also maybe a slightly bitter person. But you get a chance to actually kind of be the mediating voice in the room at one point and say, "Hey, I think this is a little bit crazy. We might actually be in a horror movie." But this idea of the grog being more than just this character, I think it shows up in not just the single you've done for the film Scared to Death, but it's also the title of your upcoming album, A Grog is Born. So,
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
you know,
that's God bless them, mom and dad, and me as a first picture, probably a J.C. Penney or a Sears, and a happy moment in my family's life. I was born, and I'm thinking, okay, scared to death, the grog is born. I'm sitting there one night, and I sent it to my management. I go, I got the album title, Barbra Streisand, A Star Is Born. Use that font because that kind of born Barbra Streisand to the world. Here's this picture, iconic thing. My mom just passed in 24, and my dad passed in 16, and my sister died in 13. So my whole family of four is gone except for me. But I've always been the rock for my family. I took care of them, and I want to take care of people. And I'm like, okay, this picture would be great. We'll put we call this the tickler, and it'll be Halloween costumes and everything. But so I'm like, I called Paul. I go, put that on my chin as a baby. Put some tats on my arms. And they nailed it, him and Ed. And then the next, it's a double album again. I love double albums because I loved them as a kid. And the inside, you see me as like the Grog at 20 with his big 20, big cure hairdo. And then you've got the Grog now. And then on the back cover where all of the songs will be and stuff, it's really cool. It's like another Sears picture, like I think when I was like two or three, just sitting in a chair with my legs crossed and a little suit coat with my tickler. And I thought, why not tie the movie to this? We've got our song In Deep in the movie. In Deep's now rising on the charts. Hopefully it's up 37 on mainstream. It's a song I did with Josh Todd from Buck Cherry. We've toured a lot with them and just bring it all together. Make it simple. You know, we have fans. They want to hear the music. They want to see the movie. It's all here. We're going to package it all together for you. I can't wait for Grog merchandise to come out too. That's going to be so much fun.
And it's something we don't get as much of as we used to. Back in like the 80s and 90s, you used to get these full entertainment packages. You know, when a movie came out, there would be a video game tie-in, there would be an album, soundtrack tie-in that would go with it. You'd get, occasionally you'd get collectible cups from different fast food places. There was all this
Yeah.
kind of there's this like a lot of collecting that went around these kind of films, and to some extent that still persists. But I think we do miss some of that, the merchandising of genre a little bit. Um, and
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, there were movies coming out all the time at fast food chains, all that stuff. But we can all do this together too. And and I want to listen to what people want, not force something that people don't want. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
totally. I mean, especially in a time when it's so easy to choose something else, right? It's like we have almost an infinite amount of choice of what we could spend our time listening to, watching, doing. So if the more we can do to get connect, creators and artists to the fans that adore them, I think there's a good reciprocity that comes from you knowing what they want and being able to deliver against that. And in the case of the album, is is the plan to kind of keep it thematically focused on you as an individual in the different stages of your life, or is it a little bit more sporadic than that?
Oh, the music side of what I do is it's about me I've learned so much fighting to get to where I am in life, and I want to share that with people, and I share that a lot in my lyrics. If you listen to my first album, and so it begins, a lot of that was the early. It's definitely a progression. I had an EP, then we had that double album come out. I got more out because I have like 50 plus songs in the works, and so that I wanted to present that and let people start thinking, plus show my unique side. Because when I came back, I hadn't sung in so long. I had to really, over the last few years, tour. I worked with Chris Lord Alge in the studio. Now I'm singing. I'm singing high. I'm singing low. I like singing mostly low. And my guitarist Marco, he does a lot of the high stuff. I want to share common sense with people if you listen to my lyrics with people on what to avoid, what to do, how to treat people in life. And on Grog is Born, I think what we've done is we've elevated our professionalism, the sound. It's like it's going to blow people away. This album, I will be shocked if it doesn't blow up because it is one of the best albums I've ever heard in my life. And I'm not saying it because it's Kurt Deimer, but I love all kinds of music and I put it all together. And now you're going to hear me singing on everything. And it's just a fun ride as well. And it'll also draw attention to And So It Begins. So you see how the first album's And So It Begins. And then the next one, A Grog is Born. It's kind of the birth of this whole movement that we're going to have. And I can't wait for everybody to go on this ride with me. So.
I mean, it sounds like it's the year of Dahmer, if you ask me. You've got all kinds of things laid out for yourself in terms of new album, new single, new film, another film coming out later this year.
Hellbilly
Um,
Hollow. Yeah.
so, Kurt, I gotta say it's been a pleasure chatting with you today about Scared to Death and the work you're doing in the music space as well. And I want to remind everyone that's watching this that you can catch Scared to Death in theaters, which you should. Like most films, they're best enjoyed in a dark room with other people on March 13th of this year. And Kurt, I know you've got an album coming out in May as well. The single's already out for Scared to Death, so there's no shortage of Kurt Deimer out there for folks to get a little taste of.
Yeah, and Hellbilly Hollow with the horror duo Bull and Tickles, that'll be out this fall. More theaters are adding. I just heard about 5 more coming on today in Miami. And come out, if you're in LA, come out to Burbank. I'll be with some of my castmates at the premiere at the Burbank AMC on Friday the 13th.
Amazing. Well, no better way to spend Friday the 13th, if you ask me. And Kurt, appreciate the time. Good luck with everything you're working on this year and with the film. And hopefully we'll be talking again later this fall.
We will. I will always be here for you, Matt, and I appreciate you spreading the word and the love and the peace and the kindness very much.
Thank you so much, Kurt.
All right.
Take care of
Thank you, brother.
yourself.
Enjoy the movie at the theater.
Will do, Kurt.
All right,
Enjoy the
brother.
rest of the interviews. Hello, fiends, friends, and familiars. This is Matt Orozco here from Macabre Daily, and I'm joined today by Paul Boyd, who is the writer and director of Scared to Death, upcoming film from Atlast Distribution, which you can catch in theaters on March 13th, 2026. So, Paul, thank you so much for taking some time to meet with me today.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, I know we don't have all day and all the time, so I'm going to dive right into my first few questions. The first is which is kind of a table setting one. What is your history with horror and the genre as a whole?
Well, just essentially being a massive horror fan, like everybody else, that has good taste. Um, you know, The Shining, it kind of started with Kubrick for me, really, and The Exorcist and The Shining. And, I've always been a fan, but, I've written 20 scripts. Haven't written a lot of horror. This film was written as a straight horror, until we cast Lin and Bill in there. And then it kind of shifted to a hybrid and leaned more into comedy, which is great because that's kind of the essence of the movie is that humans are monsters. And it's a really analysis of the film business too. So it kind of started from there. I moved into a haunted house, a real haunted house. The owner that sold it to us, I never saw any ghosts. The family did. Believing is seeing came out of that because I believe, but I never saw, but I never saw anything. So it came a bunch of it came from that reality of also writing about what the paradigm of a film crew. I know that, that's my world. So it was, setting a trap. And seeing this bunch of opportunists trying to get out of it. That was
Right.
and it's more of a suspense than a horror. It's the bomb under the table. It's Lynn, it's Hitchcock. It's like what's going to happen. It's this ticking time bomb of suspense rather than trying to make the most terrifying, scary. It's this dance between comedy and horror. It's very similar things, the two of them.
Yeah.
Circumstantial, situational. So it was that really. It came out of that. But since I've written it, I have four other horror movies that I've written, and I'm kind of leaning into it now. But Lawrence of Arabia is my favorite movie. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah. Well, I
I
mean,
across the whole spectrum.
yeah, and I mean, I think the best films and filmmakers have this kind of well-rounded perspective because if you only know one thing, it's really hard to innovate because you're only looking at the same thing in repeat rather than getting exposure to other things. I mean, you yourself come from a very significant music video background, having worked with some really large names and groups, as well as the commercial front. So you've kind of seen entertainment through the lens of
Yeah.
musicians, through filmmaking, through working with brands directly. And I can definitely see kind of some of those inspirations about your lived experience show up because we're dealing with characters who um, they're not the biggest, they're not the biggest shits in the room, if you will. They're people that are just trying to make it in an industry that is notoriously difficult.
Yeah.
And they're surrounded by people who've made it who refuse to help them. So it's an interesting kind of irony that the entertainment industry has of wanting to bring people in, but making it very difficult for them to succeed. And when you think about having worked in different mediums and in different parts of the industry before, what have you found to be the starkest difference between working kind of on the music video front to moving into commercials and then, of course, into features?
I think it's the same world. I think filmmaking is what filmmaking is. It just depends on who's hiring you and what you're doing. I mean, for example, when we first started making music videos, they were called pop promos. They were promotional material for a band, and they had money and there was budgets. And actually, back in the day when music made money, people actually
Right?
their music. Can you believe that? So
The era of the single, which is almost
yeah,
gone now.
almost gone. So it kind of, it came from that, from just, I've always just gone out and made stuff. I've been making films since I was a little kid. So to me, I only want to write my own and direct my own material. Someone a long time ago said, yeah, you can do that. It'll just take you a lot longer than just plugging in being a director for hire. I just no interest in that. I have stories to tell, and the process, the challenge is figuring out how to do that. And that doesn't mean sticking to one genre. I mean, the next film we just did a drama. The next one after this is a mockumentary. So you know what I mean? It's the process and the journey and the learning is what makes it so interesting to me. And fucking out, making mistakes, learning from that's the process that is so wonderful. And having been a director for over 30 years, now I know what I want. I know how to achieve what I want visually. It's just what do I want narratively, and,
Hmm.
and how do you let a project evolve from something that was straight horror into comedy? And you know what I mean? That was the most fascinating process for me, rather than being no, it has to be this. Like Lynn was meant to play the shrink, and the sidekick, she ended up playing the horrible boss. That right there changed the entire dynamic of the script. I was like, okay, I can lean into something about Mary and Kingpin. I can do something outrageous now. Whereas with her,
Yeah.
so it opened up and changed the whole concept. So then at that point, I'm going, okay, this is a dance between absurdist humor and scares. So it became more of that. It became more an examination of the personalities rather than, and the scares just punctuate it really. It's about opportunists, you know. Jasper's a total opportunist. He's like doing it for himself and opens up a can of worms, you know, but ends up with a film. But it's still judged at the end where it's like, you know, you know, I mean, it's this kind of game of the game of in Hollywood. You think you summed it up pretty well. It is about that.
Yeah, and I mean, and it's so funny because it's great that you mentioned kind of Lynn and kind of her some of the more eccentric work she's gotten to do in the past because you also have Bill Moseley, who is known for kind of being the outrageous one, and the roles that he's played, but he's also given so much room here to really be an
Yeah.
actor, you know, and not have to go over the top and just be, you
Yeah.
know, an interesting person of itself. So when you went through the casting process, how much of this was, oh, I really have this idea in mind for Lin Shaye and Bill Moseley and all these folks, or was it more just these were the right people and for the roles that you saw?
They were the ideals because we knew we were making a horror movie, a low budget indie horror. If I could get these two guys, it would endorse our film because they're kind of icons. And then I cast them typically, atypical. It was like, you know, she's the shrink. And then so when it turned and it changed and I went back to Bill, it was a surprise. You know, it was kind of okay. It became a challenge for him and for all of us. So that right there pushed us into new territory because Bill, you see, Bill is great at playing scary guys, but he's such a goof. He's
Yeah.
the funniest goof that to me it just worked because also he has that look about him like, can I trust this guy? You know what I mean? You can't.
Yeah, he's a
He's
snake oil salesman.
not the little scorpion. So it was more that. It was more okay. Here I can twist the characters a little, make them a little less obvious. But I still played into every cliche in the horror book. I mean, it's a love letter to the horror movies and to Hollywood. That it's meant to be that. It's meant to reflect the reverence of Jasper and the grog and how they're just believers and they love the bit. You know, it's more about that as much as it is about horror movies. It's about wanting to make films and wanting to be a filmmaker and the challenges that you face trying to do that, especially by people in the business who should be fucking helping you. You know, but
Right.
this business is not like it's very closed. If you're trying to break in, which is the beautiful thing now, because kids don't need the fucking business. They can take their phone, they can take their laptop, and they can just go do it on
I
their
mean,
own.
there's a great there's a great scene with Lynn and Jasper where she basically he's like, I'm quitting. I'm out of here. Like I'm done with this. And she pretty much begs him to stay.
Yeah.
And it really represents, I think, this kind of part that we don't, it's behind closed doors that we don't get to see, but there is this really kind of heavy, almost I think what psychiatrists would call it like codependent relationship that like some filmmakers have with their support team because they've lived their lives being catered to in this way that they don't know, and you kind of atrophy some of those resources to self-serve. So it's really fascinating to see the interplay of how someone like Lynn's character represents kind of the traditional Hollywood industry, but how that industry is so reliant on the work of the people that it tries to continually exploit and push down. So I think to that end, like you're right, Scared to Death is so much more than just a horror comedy. It's a commentary on the state of an industry through the lens of a horror comedy. And, you know, to that end, I always like to ask this question. I've told it's a little difficult, so I apologize in advance.
No, no.
Is if you were asked to program a double feature with Scared to Death, what do you think would make a good companion piece to watch alongside of it?
Living in Oblivion. Shaun of
Different
the
genre, very similar
Shaun of,
sentiment.
Shaun of the Dead, maybe. Young
All
Frank.
good. All
Jim Plannette, who was the gaffer on Young Frankenstein, was the gaffer on Scared to Death. And
really.
Steven Poster, the DP, shot Donnie Darko. So I had those two, but Jim Plannette, who also have done 3 films with him now. This guy's like in his 80s. Like, wow. I mean, he could take 2 light bulbs and make I mean, just genius. Having that on set, he did Traffic. I mean, you know, the guy's a legend. And So yeah, I mean, just getting to do that, and that's part of the film business that I love. Like, you can get these people that have worked on the most insane, massive projects who come and do your film. Do you know what I
I
mean?
mean, it's like I mean, it's Ed Wood in the style of trying to bring Boris Karloff back, or sorry, not Boris Karloff. Played Dracula, Bela Lugosi.
Yeah.
Like it's the same. Like John Carradine in his later career, it was in so many movies because people knew John Carradine's still working. Now, he wasn't in the best of shape, right? He was kind of nearing the end of
Yeah.
his life, but he was there. And I think that so much of what genre fans love, and I guess it's testament to some of the talent you pulled together, is the fact that we do revere our legacy elders, and we do want to see them continue to show up. And this movie is a
Totally.
good love letter to that.
And you know what? I say that line from Ed Wood all the time. The next one will be better. Like when they're criticizing his film, it's brilliant. I say that all the time because, you know, we're not perfect. And films, that's the beauty of film is that they're so polarizing. You can be a couple that are in love and married together and both not like the same thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not, it's incredible how polarizing films are. Like, I'm not a big fan of Christopher Nolan. You say that, people are like, I don't get it. That's the beauty of movies. And I think that's part of the process of making them too, is this journey. For me, it's this discovery. It's not, okay, here it is. This is what we're doing. It's like, this is a starting place. How do I bring these people together and make this better? That
Right.
is because you take all those brains together. I mean, man, the power of multiple brains, how can that not be better than one mind? Do you know what I mean?
That's why they say, making a film is a miracle because it's not something that one person has the responsibility for. It's a collective effort that even if something doesn't land as intended, it still takes a Herculean effort to get all these people working in the same way towards the shared goal. And I was talking with another filmmaker months ago about this, where we talked about lamenting the death of the just the middle of the road three-star film. It's like everything either has to be the best thing that's ever been made or the worst thing that's ever been made, but there's so many things that reside in that middle. And I think that that middle is where you get to have a lot of fun and you see something different and interesting because it's not so committed to something where it's either going to live or die or like succeed or fail on that thing. It's open to more than that.
I
So
I agree, man. And look, one of my favorite filmmakers is John Waters. I think, it's like Werner Herzog too. He's like storyboards are for cowards. I think there are no rules and so much of it is down to the energy on set. You get and that's why a novice director can make a brilliant movie. Novice actor can do an incredible, but look at fucking Adolescence. That kid comes in, never acted
yeah.
before in his life, kills it. I'm a firm believer in that. It's the ensemble. It's not necessarily how much experience they have. It's getting the right group of people. You said it yourself. It takes a village to make a film, and that means a village means all people that are part of a community. They're not just all strangers. It's like everyone's trying to aim towards this common goal, and that's hard to do, especially in the business where people aren't making a lot of money. I need you for 3 weeks. It's a challenge, and that's why you hope that the material is what keeps people engaged, not just the audience, but the filmmakers. They want to participate. They see the people I work with, they see how hard I work, they see my focus, and that I must turn them on to be like, I want to be part of the vision because they all get to contribute. It's not, what I mean, to me, when I hire someone, I give that. When I was a young man, I controlled everything. I was like a micromanager in all the videos and commercials. Now, if I hire someone, I let them do it. I'm like, I'm hiring you to use your brain power, not to just tap on what I know. And
Right.
I'm here to say yes or no to certain things, but in the end, if I hire someone, I want them to do the job, to bring to the table, not just to do what I ask. Because I'm limited
What
in my own choices too, in my own experience. I want someone to bring something to the table. And if everyone does that, then you're golden.
And you mentioned something earlier about it's about the successes, but also the failures. And I think that that's the kind of thought process you only arrives once you've realized that you've overcommitted or you're overwhelmed with what you've got in front of you, that you have to delegate and you have to share that responsibility. So,
Totally.
um, Paul, I just want to say thank you again for the time today. I'd probably talk to you for hours longer just about life in the world it is, but I want to
Sure.
remind everybody that Scared to Death will be out in theaters on March 13th. It's the kind of film you go see with friends and family so you can have a good time with the theaters, get a popcorn, get a soda or an adult beverage, whatever you prefer. And Paul, look forward to the rest of the films you're making. I know you've got another one in post-production. Look, is that like In Treatment or something like that that looks pretty interesting. So definitely keep an eye out for what you're working on and appreciate the time today.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it.
It's a pleasure.